Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. We are so glad to have you on the program with us. It's show number 136. Looking at the craft beer report for 2019. We already shared some of those figures with you. We'll get back to more of that, plus Toppling Goliath Brewing's Fire, Skulls, and Money IPA coming up in the next segment. But right now it's time for the return of something we really enjoy here on the show, which is the Smoking and Toasting Recommended Shops segment. And this is when we spend a few minutes with someone from a cigar shop or a lounge that we particularly like, and there's lots of them because we just particularly enjoy cigar shops and lounges. But you know, in the world of brick and mortar sales, actual cigar shops, it's something we really want to encourage people to support because it's something I would hate to see. Hey, I don't mind ordering cigars on the internet, but I really, really feel big into supporting the actual
like my
physical
story
shops.
From earlier. I'm hanging out in the lounge. Guy comes in, like we're the only guys in the lounge. We start up a conversation. We had great conversation for the entire time I was there. Otherwise I wouldn't meet Tony. You don't do that if you buy cigars online.
You can't replicate that in the chat.
And he was a super nice guy. We just chatted about everything from general health to growing old to construction and all kinds of stuff.
I love it. Well, without further ado, Smoking and Toasting recommended shops, the Heights Cigar Lounge, located in Houston at 240 West 19th Street. All right. Smoking and Toasting, it's another recommended cigar shop segment. And Paul, introduce yourself and talk about your store.
Yes, thank you. My name's Paul Carroll, and I'm the proprietor of Heights Cigar Lounge, located in the historic Houston Heights, just northeast by 4 miles as the crow flies outside of Houston.
It's great to be in Honduras and still be able to hang out with people from back home.
It's great.
Pretty awesome, isn't it?
We've met great people from all over the country and from here in Honduras. But this has been fun doing this. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Tell us about the history of Heights Cigar Lounge and why you decided to open a cigar shop.
Interesting tale. I'm a business analyst by trade. Spent 20 years doing that in the corporate world. And then the Great Recession hit, and although everyone will say 2009 was the outside of it, I don't believe it. And in November 2009, I was laid off. Being over 40, without a college degree, with innumerable hours, and having few exposures on my CV meant that I was going to be a tough placement for any headhunter.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was either go broke, go homeless, or make something happen. And literally 9.5 years ago, in this country of Honduras, about 30, 40 minutes away in Danlí, on another factory tour, me and a young lady on that tour just looked at each other and said, let's do it. And from that moment, it took until 2010 to register with the state and the federal government. 6-7 months later, we opened our doors in January of 2011.
Wow.
Now, I have a funny story about the Heights Cigar Lounge.
Okay.
When we first started this show, I believe you approached the Heights Cigar Lounge.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, listen, we have a little podcast. Wonder if we could come into your lounge and do this. And you met resistance. You met with, well, who are you, basically? And why would I do this for your show?
For the record, it wasn't Paul.
For the record, it was Paul.
We found this out today. So we
okay.
actually haven't approached Heights Cigar Lounge because of this, because, the initial pushback.
Well, being based in Houston, we've done shows now at a number of different
Quite
locations.
a few.
Yeah.
So today, on the buggy ride, I didn't make it on a horse.
Fantastic
Those
buggy
horses
ride.
looked at me and said, I don't think so, buddy.
That's another story for another segment.
That's another story. But anyway, on the buggy ride, me and Paul got to talking. He was on the buggy because his back was hurting him a bit.
They wouldn't let me on a horse. They just felt that I was going to die.
So we got to smoking cigars and chatting, and I told him this story. And he said, no, that was me. I said, do you remember that? He goes, not really, but it had to be me if you're looking at that timeline.
Well, I also said, and here is my human part of my person. There are just days, weeks, moments when I'm a dick. I don't know how else to say it. I'm an absolute dick. And as a retailer, that sucks. Let me tell you. As a retailer, that sucks. But there are moments that I have not built maturity around yet in my life. And I'm in them and out of them before I realize I've done wrong.
Interesting. I I don't know that anyone has ever said anything quite like that on our show.
That is amazingly humble, too.
I can think of a few people who probably should. Well, some of whom didn't actually appear on the show. They just scheduled and
then didn't
canceled.
At least I was
10
dick
minutes
enough to say
before.
not to come in.
No, exactly. At least you didn't have us show up with our gear and say, "Who are you?" Well, let me just now in front of the camera say,
Oh, shit. I'm ruining your shit.
"Are you all right?"
I'm fine. I'm worried about your mic. I can't.
We'll be all right. These are what we call rock star mics. They can take a lot of
They're
abuse.
all right.
Yeah.
Besides, that's one of Cruz's mics. He's got one
Yeah,
mic.
exactly.
Oh, so it's fitting that I break your mic.
Exactly.
Okay,
Perfect.
sorry for that.
So,
Good gracious.
Paul, now in front of the camera, and I'll also point out that, sitting out here is also Justo Arroyo, who we all, have come to know and love.
Yes.
So in front of all these guys, perhaps I should ask again, would it be all right for us to come to your store and do the show?
It doesn't matter if they were by ourselves. I would say yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, it can help sometimes
Now,
getting to know people.
I just
and-
want you to know that I purposefully told him, I said, don't say anything until we do our segment.
Okay,
Because that's going to
okay.
be awesome.
I had another dick story to talk about, but this was much better.
Again, we'll save that for another segment.
There we
and
go.
Maybe when we're in the store.
yeah.
That'll be fun. So tell us about Heights Cigar Lounge. What? First of all, you've got the name lounges. The word lounge is in your name.
It is in my
rather
name.
than it being Heights Cigar Store, which has a lounge. Is that significant?
I chose to use the word lounge, not for bar, which I get quite a number of questions for.
Right.
And if your audience is unaware, in the city limits of Houston, it is absolutely against the law to consume alcohol in a cigar shop. Doesn't matter who owns it, who bought it. The moment you crack that cap and stick it to your lips, it's against the law.
Wow.
So, first and foremost, knowing that. Now, what was the question? This is why I don't do public speaking.
Why you named it Heights Cigar Lounge?
So I focused on lounge. Lounge for me isn't bar. It is the sitting environment.
Mm-hmm.
People had lounges in their houses.
Right.
And so I came up with that name. My first name met with failure with a few people I checked in with and the state, which was Heights Cigar Store. That went nowhere. No, I think I actually
Interesting.
started with Houston Cigar Store or something like that. Anyway, ultimately, I knew I was dropping myself into the Houston Heights area on 19th Street, Old Commerce area when that was a municipality unto itself.
It's a great little area where you
It's
can
a
walk down
wonderful
and do
location,
shopping
yeah.
and get food
we have
and stuff. It's really
boutiques
nice.
coming out all the time. There's
If Heights
gentrification
had a
occurring
town
in the
center,
area.
that would be
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm on that main drag. It's fun to be on. Again, what were we talking about?
I don't know,
Lounge.
but it was fun.
Lounge.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
lounge.
I'm a lounge.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I
lounge.
was going to have you describe the store.
We occupy just under 2,400 square feet. We have a 1,000-foot public lounge. We offer currently 35 lockers, which carry discounts for those who participate in that program. 400 square foot humidor, over 450 facings across 150 different blends. Expanding all the time. Yes, I'm yielding to the customer's request. I'm finally going to put additional shelving in there on the backside of the lockers. I'm protecting my back wall, if anyone's listening. That will be the last thing that will shelf. I promise you that. It's too pretty and plain. And we just have a good time. What sets my store apart from a lot or nearly everyone else is the tagline of my store, which
Yes.
states, "Your den away from home."
Nice.
We are, as
You're a
bad
hangout.
as this sounds or as good as this sounds, whichever way you want to look at it, we sit around as family, friends. We bicker, we fight, we annoy, we mock, we have fun. Sometimes I cry in the back when I hear employees going too far. And then in 2 minutes, he's got the customers laughing their ass off. I'm like, that's why he's still on staff.
I love it. I love it. There's a community among cigar smokers that I find is just so interesting, and we've talked about this on the show a lot. You can have people sitting in a cigar lounge. You can have, a Republican next to a Democrat. You can have an investment banker next to
I don't know what cigar shops you're
a guy
going
who
to.
works. Well, but I'm just saying, there's a community among cigar smokers that it's just about hanging and maybe the conversations get interesting.
They get
but the
interesting.
community
they get heated.
exists.
Yes, yes. I laughed only when you talked about the two primary political parties in our country. When recently, and this was a few weeks ago, in the middle of the shutdown, Trump had his State of the Union a week late. Don't care who you are, what side of the political spectrum you're on. I believe the President of the United States is owed some modicum of respect. So we put on a State of the Union, and I will tell you, 3 or 4 people saw the man on TV and went, "Not for me," and headed right out the door.
Well, that's going to happen. But I think, honestly, that is actually a bit unusual because most of the time I think people who are gathered together to, smoke and tell stories and argue and debate, it's about the community. It certainly always is for me. And that's what one of the things that I love about the whole concept of what you're doing, because so much of your square footage is devoted to
the lounge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Early days. I don't know if it was our sales rep that is here with us this weekend, Tom Polar of Polar LLC. It may have been him or one of his 2 brothers that came in my shop in that first year and asked the question, where am I going to make my money? I pointed from the humidor door to the front door. And he looked at me and blinked and went, "What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, excuse me. What are you bleeping up talking about?"
That's fine.
And I was like, "The lounge." At the time, I didn't set a trend in Houston. I didn't follow a trend. I just knew I needed. Back in 2010, 2011, there was very little seating available in tobacco retail in the Houston market.
Right.
You had your back rooms with 1 or 2 sofas, crowded with 20 people, no smoke elimination, standing in a cloud of smoke.
Right.
I knew early on that I wanted to provide enough seating for everyone. And again, I did not set a trend. I didn't follow a trend, but within the next 2 or 3 years, everybody had larger seating areas for customers.
Yeah.
That weren't a private lounge.
No, I don't have a private lounge at all.
This has been a trend, and it's coming more and more popular.
The private lounges?
No, the
public
open
lounges? Yeah.
lounge. Yeah.
To where people can buy a cigar, sit and
just
smoke
sit
it.
down, yeah.
And I will say, being from Houston, we're fortunate, even though the drinking thing is a difficult thing to pull off, at least we can still buy a cigar and sit and smoke it in the lounge there. There are some of the people that we've talked to, even on this trip, that you can't do that where their shops are.
There's a shop, excuse me, I'm stuttering. There's a shop here on our tour that you're talking about up in Plano. I'll give a shout out to Cliff and Elliot at Cigar Warehouse. They exist in Plano, Texas. You cannot smoke indoors anywhere except probably your private house in Plano. They have the strictest smoking policy in the state.
Wow. And it's a big state.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. What has stood out to you most on this? I know you mentioned you've been on other cigar factory tours before. What stood out to you most here?
I try to hit a factory every year. Now, that might sound excessive to a lot of folks, but it's 1 of 2 times out of the year that I get out of the store. I am working, whether you believe it or not. We're all sitting around in shorts and blah, blah, blah. I mean, come on now. But it is work because we're learning, we're being trained, we're gaining knowledge. I think the biggest thing for me this weekend was on a personal level. Then I'll talk about the professional level. The personal level was just huge. The open arms, the loving attention, and that loving attention extended. They talked about back troubles and why I was in a buggy. We didn't know what I was going to do when we got down there, and there was a horse-drawn buggy. I was blown away. When I say back troubles, I was at the clinic this morning getting Honduran medicine for the first time in my life. I'm loving life right now. On a professional level, I have retweaked the blends in my head that he has in his portfolio that I support. I've corrected things in my mind about the processes involved. I researched the Aurora Farm and their history. Side note, I'm grateful that the hand-rolled folks are coming back through to do a Honduran movie because they skipped that in their movie.
Yes.
And that's when I learned about the true nature of how Honduras became one of the best and first growing regions in Central America. And it's all down to earlier in this podcast, you spoke to Justo. He talked about his father coming across, but his father joining a pilot program that had already started with the Cubans. And from that little bit, Julio grew an immense organization in Central America here in the Jamastran Valley.
Yes, and it's just so interesting to see the kind of influence that I think this is going to have going forward. I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about not only just Honduran tobacco in general, but about Aladdin and JRE.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Any cigars that you've had during your time here that have stood out to you?
Yes. Well, although it's not the one you see at the front of the table, which I will talk about a little bit more in depth here in a moment, I, like the other 2 recommended shops you've just interviewed, fell in love with that Connecticut.
Yes.
It's an outstanding.
It's an outstanding smoke. But the one I have that I'm smoking right now, which was talked about just before the segment before me, was the Toro size of the holy crap, Aladino Reserva.
Yes.
And this is one of those pilot cigars. You've seen me light it a couple times, so you've already witnessed some of the information we passed that you just perfectly described when you were with Justo, how we passed that to the rollers, to everybody in supervisory roles on the floor, and they went out to take action against it.
They went immediately
Absolutely
to work
blew
on
me
it.
away. But you've seen me relight it a couple times, so you're aware that we are involved in helping grow the quality of this blend to perfection that Justo and Julio seek every moment of their life in their cigars.
And as I think I mentioned when we were speaking with Justo, if they get it to the place where the Robusto is, it'll be damn near perfect.
What I find phenomenal about the top shelf Aladino Reserva is it's a Honduran Corojo Puro. We in America bastardized the true meaning of puro to mean cigar from one country. However, we need to find a new term for when the cigar comes from one farm. This cigar comes from one farm.
Wow.
What makes it extra special outside of the regular Aladino and Aladino Maduro is that it includes the top two Ligero leaves they call the Corona Crown, which impart an extra richness to the tobacco. This thing tastes phenomenal.
It is. It is really a great flavor.
So, in addition to saying, yes, I'm with the rest of the lemmings on the Connecticut Aladino because it's just phenomenal, I wanted to talk about my experience with and share some blend information about the Aladino Reserva.
That's awesome. Heights Cigar Lounge in the Heights, 19th Street.
19th
Houston?
Street. Our physical address is 240 West 19th Street. And if that doesn't give you the full address in any kind of GPS, you need the zip code 77008.
Right up the street from the Heights Theater, if you've been to a
I want
show
to say
there.
we're a block away. They're half a block on the next. We're in the half block that we're on.
Yeah, it's
open 7 days a week. Our phone number is 832-487-9086. And like I do on the phone, I'm repeating 832-487-9086. You can find us on the web at, I can't remember my web, at HeightsCigarLounge.com. How damn easy. Excuse me.
Paul, thanks for being on the show. And not only are you now a Smoking and Toasting recommended cigar shop, but we look forward to coming out,
come
sharing
anytime,
cigars with you.
interview me
And
anytime you want, come
talking
hang out.
tobacco.
It's all good. It's all good.
They told me you were friendly.
Yeah, you got to get to know me. You got to get past the dick shield. Thank you very much.
And welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Heights Cigar Lounge in the historic Houston Heights. They are located at 240 West 19th Street, and they are a Smoking and Toasting recommended location. Now, I want to point out one of the reasons for doing the Smoking and Toasting recommended location, recommended shop, is to be able to talk about cigar shops and lounges that we aren't able to visit and do shows from ourselves as easily because of being located here.
It's a longer car drive.
But Paul was just too interesting. We had to include him, even though I'm sure we'll wind up at the Heights Cigar Lounge at some point. Now that we're on the approved list.
In the near future, yes.
Now that we're on the approved list.
You know, it's going to be hilarious is if we call him up and he's like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I've already been on the show. It's like whatever. Yeah, I'm hoping that won't be the case.
He was absolutely hilarious.
He was a great guy to hang out with too. Really enjoyed his company on the trip to Honduras. All right, let's take a quick break, and we're going to come back because I'm very excited about tasting 50/50 Brewing's Eclipse Imperial Stout, and I'm very excited about tasting Toppling Goliath Brewing's Fire, Skulls, and Money IPA. And we'll do that one in the next segment. And I'm looking forward to it because it comes in a really beautiful artistic can, and it's going to be so fun to see it rotating on the the beer cam turntable.
On the beer cam turntable, which Brian missed because he just logged in.
Yes,
he didn't see the initial reveal.
Yeah, so Brian, you'll have to check this out. It's high tech, and you'll love it. We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Yeah, right.